Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jew Folk, and we are back after enjoying a couple weeks off. This week we get to talk to Elise Cole. Elise is a native St. Paulite who is a wife, mother, grad student, waitress, and very funny comedian. Elise talks with me this week about her very successful start to her comedy career, all of the places she finds inspiration, and opening up for Ophira Eisenberg on January 19th, the opening night of the 10th annual Twin Cities Jewish Humor Festival, on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Elise Cole, welcome to the Who the Folk podcast, episode 1 of 2019.
Awesome, thank you.
And we are here in the St. Paul JCC, and you were telling me when we were coming into this meeting room, this was the classroom that you were in when you were in the ECC here many years ago?
Yeah, circa 1984, 85, this was my classroom.
Well, the building recently redone looks a whole lot different than it, I'm sure it was back then, huh?
Yeah, some parts of it. The rest of it, not so much. I remember the little glass window next to the door. I have this very vague memory from when I was like 18 months old, like my first day of daycare and not wanting to go in and like trying to press myself in that space. No!
I think you and every kid that's ever been dropped off at daycare probably.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the podcast. You are the opening act for the opening night of this year's Twin Cities Jewish Humor Festival, the 10th anniversary of the event. What's it like to sort of be that first person on stage to kick off this year's festival?
It's a little bit surreal. I haven't been performing stand-up comedy that long. It's been a lifelong dream of mine, but I never actually got up the courage to get on stage and try to get to an open mic until about a year ago. So when Claire contacted me a couple months ago and said, "Hey, how would you like to open for Ophira Eisenberg?" I said, are you kidding? I would love to do that. So this is huge for me.
What is it about comedy that got you interested in it in the first place that you pursued this?
I was raised on stand-up comedy. I think that's the earmark of a good Jewish home. I had, so it was the 80s, and we had a vinyl record collection of Bill Cosby and Steve Martin and Stephen Wright, and I mean, all these guys. That's what I grew up with. And I've always loved storytelling and storytellers, and that era of comedy, that kind of late 70s, early 80s, that's what those guys did. It was a 1-hour album, and it was storytelling kind of from beginning to end. And I love people's stories. I think it's one of the most basic ways we can connect with another person is to share something about ourselves that somebody else can identify with.
So when did you take the plunge? You said about a year ago, but what was it that you finally said, okay, I got to go do this. I got to go stand in front of a room full of people I don't know and see what happens? It
actually was the Moth. They do a Moth Story Slam at the Amsterdam Bar, I think the 3rd or 4th Wednesday of every month. And I had a writing partner. My friend and I used to meet once a week and just do writing exercises for an hour. And he was going to do it. And he said, we should do it together. Why don't you come with me? And so in, I think, September or October of 2017, I went to the Moth. And I had prepared this story. And I had somebody kind of help me put the building blocks, the foundation of that story together. And I went up there and did a mostly memorized but partially ad-libbed story, and people were cracking up. And it was a full house. It was like 300 people, and I got off stage, and I was like, oh, my God, this is what I was meant to do. And so I started going to open mics probably in October and November, so another month or so after that.
So how hard is it to put yourself out there and tell what it is, you watch most comedians, they're very personal stories about themselves. What's it like to go out there and do that? Having never done it myself.
I don't understand people who have a fear of public speaking. I've never been scared of it.
Okay.
I think that's bizarre. And it might be because I'm the youngest. Like, I've always sort of been the entertainer. It doesn't bother me to get up on stage and talk about myself. I kind of can't wait to do it. Like, it's really more for me than for them. If you laugh, great. Like, I just need to get this off my chest. Is kind of what it's about for me.
What's the the most anxious you've been? Do you get anxious?
I do. There's a weird sort of culture and structure to comedy that I didn't know getting into it, which is at most open mics you get 3 minutes of time, and at a couple places like Acme, if you go over that 3-minute mark, they'll cut the mic and you get 86. Like, you have to be really careful and really conscious of your time when you're on stage.
Wow.
So that means practicing beforehand and making sure that you get all the setup in and all the punchlines in, and that you come in at under 3 minutes or under 5 minutes. And so learning how to have the foundation of the joke, but leaving room for the audience responses, and also allowing myself time to ad-lib. Every time I move up in a time slot where I start getting 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes, or 7 minutes instead of 5 minutes, then I get anxious about, where am I at on time? Am I going to get cut off?
There's like no clock on stage, right? There's nothing that you can see off in the distance, or you're just running. It's the clock in your head that tells you time-wise where you're at.
Sometimes there is an actual clock.
Oh, okay.
At the Comedy Corner underground, they have a clock that the audience can't see, but you can. And every place I've ever performed has some kind of light. Either the host will use the flashlight app on their phone, or there's a red light bulb above the stage, and when you have 30 to 60 seconds left, they'll give you a light to warn you, like, wrap it up.
So like a 3-minute set, I mean, that's hardly a set. That's like one story maybe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense.
And you get the light at 2:30, and you have 30 seconds to wrap it
to
up.
bring it home.
Yep.
Wow. So what's the biggest audience you've played in front of?
I think probably a couple hundred people. There have been a few different venues where it's been probably 200 people, give or take.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
I want a bigger audience. That doesn't seem... I want a stadium. I'm like, if this hits at 200, I want to hear what that laugh sounds like at 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ambitious.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So does it feel like, from where you started to where you're at now, does that feel like a quick rise in the comedy ranks, at least amongst people that you've heard from? Or is it a sort of standard, you open mic, and then you get asked to perform?
This was pretty quick.
Okay.
But I'm in grad school for creative writing. I'm getting an MFA in creative writing at Hamlin.
Okay.
And I work really hard at construction, and I record all of my sets, and I listen to all of my sets, and I try new taglines, and I try new punchlines, and I'm constantly working on the material that I have and polishing. And at one point last year, I was going to like 5 open mics a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So it doesn't happen this quickly for everybody, but I also have the luxury, I guess, of having a great and supportive partner. And the way that my life is set up right now, I can be out of the house at night without having to worry about, who's taking care of my kid, or having to, wait tables or whatever.
Okay. Do you wait tables also?
I do. So
okay. Okay. So mom to 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Wife.
Yep.
Grad student.
Yeah.
Waitress.
Yeah.
Comedian.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's about it for now.
So where do you work at?
Sajiya.
Okay.
It's a Japanese restaurant on Grand Avenue. It's been open for like 40 years, but nobody's ever heard of it. They're like, "Oh, you mean Fujiya?" I'm like, "No, Sajiya."
Different place.
Different place.
So I'd imagine all of those things is great material.
It is. Yeah, especially my kid. They're priceless.
Yes.
He came up with a new word for throwing up. He had a tummy bug a couple weeks ago, and I came into his room. Well, I did 3 shows in 24 hours. I had 2 shows on Friday night, and then I had 1 show on Saturday night. And I drove home from Hopkins in a snowstorm, and I got a Jimmy John's, and I fell asleep on the couch at like midnight, and my husband comes downstairs at 2:45, and he goes, "Hey, I could use your help." He just threw up in his bed. And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to get the bucket. I'll be right there." And he was happy as a clam. It like didn't faze him at all that he just puked all over his bed.
No, that's about right for 3 years old.
Yeah.
That's about right.
And he goes, "Mom, I screeched on my bed." And I said, "You what?" And he goes, "Yeah, I was on my knees, and then I squeaked, and then Daddy came in." I go, "Did you just say you screeched on your bed?" And he goes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's...
Kids are funny.
Yeah. And everyone I've told is like, what? Maybe that's the sound, like the noise he made when he threw up.
Sure. I mean, there's probably something to that, I would imagine. But, like, you could ask him where that came from, and he would have no idea.
No.
That's really funny.
Screech.
So, how much does the MFA work help with the comedy and that writing? And did the MFA, you start down that path before you started down comedy?
I did. I started the MFA first. Writing was kind of my way of backing into comedy. When I started the program at Hamlin, I thought, I want to be like the next David Sedaris. I wanted to write nonfiction. I wanted to write about my life. And before reading his book, Me Talk Pretty One Day, I did not know that writing could be that funny. I mean, I remember reading one chapter from that book and laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. And I thought, that's a real skill. That's an incredible talent. To put something on paper that's so funny, it's like crippling. Because I didn't believe that stand-up was like a thing that I could really do. That just seemed like, yeah. I mean, I thought I maybe had the talent to do it, but I thought, that's not a real thing.
Yeah.
That's my life's dream. Nobody gets to just live their life's dream. That's not a real job, And so I thought, well, I'll just be a funny writer.
Yeah.
And what I found is the foundations of writing are kind of always the same, that comedy and written language are about the economy of words. That the goal for me as a writer and a performer is to have every single word be doing some kind of work. And if it's not, then cut it.
Interesting. Well, and I suppose in a 3-minute set, you have to get there quick or it's not.
Yeah.
You got to cut those words.
Yep.
Before comedy, before the MFA program, what was your, sort of plan in life? Was it always this?
This was always in the back of my mind as like, if I could have anything, do anything, be anything, no holds barred, money wasn't an issue, I would be a stand-up comedian. That's what I would be doing with my life. But I also love writing. Like when I was 7, I asked for a desk and a typewriter for my birthday. Like not a computer, not a word processor. I wanted a typewriter, because I was a voracious reader, and I thought books are power. They have a good writer has the power to transport a reader to another time and place, and I just thought it was magical, and I had all these stories in my head. So I did always want to be a writer, and now being almost finished with the program at Hamlin, there's a part of me that wants to teach. I also love editing. I did one term on the nonfiction editorial board for Waterstone Review, which is Hamlin's literary magazine, and I'll be doing that again this spring. But I think I want to write funny things with other funny people, and I don't know what form that's going to take yet.
Okay. That's sort of fun in the exploration, though.
Yeah.
So one of the things you had mentioned before we started was that you have a big family. Mm-hmm. And I know your bio points out that you're an Iranian Jew. Mm-hmm. You're second generation American, but your mother comes from an Irish Catholic background. So how is that, taken the sort of Iranian Jew, Irish Catholic convert family and put all together? How is that? That's got to be rich for material there.
It is. My opening joke for the very first polished 3-minute set I ever had came from a date that I was on 15 years ago. I went out with this guy, and he said, wait, so your dad's Iranian? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I thought you were Jewish. And I said, I am. And he said, you're an Iranian Jew? And I go, yeah, so people don't know whether to hate me or hate me. And he goes, that's funny. You should do stand-up. And I was like, yeah, right. And then kind of what that turned into is, in this storytelling, I also I'm honest to a fault. I started I started in on the Iranian Jewish material, and then I was like, oh wait, I should tell you guys, my mom is Irish Catholic, and then people usually laugh because they're shocked at that. And I say, yeah, I sent a cheek swab to 23andMe, and I just got a note that said, you're screwed. And there also, of course, is potential for guilt jokes. Like, I have a Catholic mom who turned into a Jewish mom, so I feel bad about everything.
If you didn't feel bad enough about everything beforehand.
Right.
Just pile it on.
Yeah.
That's very funny. So how much, when you open for Ophira with the Humor Festival, how long of a set do you get?
I think 15 minutes.
Okay. Is that the longest set you've done? What's your longest so far?
I've been working at about 20 to 25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think that doing 15 will give me an opportunity to really do my best 15.
Yeah.
So this is that tradition of like, performing comedy is like constantly editing an article. It's being given the opportunity to go back and say, I should have said that instead, and right. I can actually go back and change it. So like I did a 20-minute set on New Year's Eve, and I think it was 21 minutes and 47 seconds. So I'll go back and listen to that recording and just crop and cut out everything that wasn't hitting, or try to come up with a better tagline and just kind of whittle it down to 15.
Tweak it to the point that it's the best 15 you could put out
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that sounds both awesome and fascinating and frightening all at the same time.
And it's weird. You can say the exact same thing the exact same way with two different audiences, and in one place it'll be an applause break. Like people are holding onto the floor, they're laughing so hard. And in another room, you'll get maybe a chuckle and no one else responds.
How does that affect you when that happens?
Usually I acknowledge it. I don't know if that's always the best thing to do, but I kind of can't stop myself. Like I had a punchline fall flat at a show I did for Royal Comedy Theater in Hopkins. And I said, wow, usually people laugh at that. And that got a laugh.
The self-deprecating, I think people, that they'll pick up.
And then you just kind of go, oh, you didn't like that one? Well, okay, try the tagline. And then you throw something else out there.
How do you sort of stay composed when you know it's gotten a laugh before? How do you sort of hang in there and not spiral and start second guessing?
I am just honest. I mean, that's if I'm nervous or I screw up, I acknowledge it.
Okay.
Which not everyone does. Some people go, don't do that. Don't tell them that you don't know what you're doing, because they don't know where you're at in your set. You don't have to tell them you skipped part of the setup. I'm like, yeah, but I won't be able to go on with my set if I don't acknowledge that that's what happened.
Right.
And maybe it isn't always funny, but it hasn't yet seemed to stop the momentum of the show. I think in a way it makes me more relatable to people, that I'm up there and I'm talking in front of 50 to 250 people.
Okay.
And I screwed up, and I just go, oh God, I screwed up. Well, whatever. Let's start the next joke.
Does it help that they see that you can laugh at yourself when you make a mistake?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, again, I think it probably is with anything, depends on the room.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that are there.
Yeah. And I think it's really, it goes back to that connection thing. Like, one of the other things I had to learn is I got so focused on getting through all of my material within the allotted time that I really didn't do any crowd work. I didn't talk to the audience or talk to an individual member of the audience. And so it was more like I was performing a one-person play, which might get a laugh, but people aren't as invested in that, and they aren't as engaged.
Okay.
And so there also has to be a balance between, like, okay, say what you went up here to say, but also be in the moment with that audience so that I can read them and kind of gauge what they're responding to or not responding to.
So how do you decide who you're talking to in the audience?
If somebody is laughing really hard, I will talk to that person.
Okay.
There was a lady on New Year's Eve who was sitting at the table directly in front of the stage, and she did not laugh. She didn't even crack a smile for like 7 straight minutes. And some comedians will riff on that. They'll go after that person who isn't responding. But I just pretended she wasn't there. Like, I don't want to do that.
Where'd you play New Year's Eve?
There's a brewery in Belle Plaine, Minnesota called Euphoric.
Okay.
And a comedian named Mark Knudsen lives in that area. And so he talked to the owners of the brewery about putting together a comedy show.
Oh, nice.
And had myself and 2 other comedians from the Twin Cities out there. So we each did 20 minutes. And nice. It was super. It was a full house. They had like a couple hundred people.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you got really good really quick at this, given that you haven't been doing it that long. No,
but I mean, I think that that's true, and I don't even feel a little bit bad about saying that.
Listen, if you've got it, flaunt it, right? I mean,
I spent my entire life listening to comedy albums. I have whole hour-long sets memorized. And so kind of the rhythm and the style and all of that stuff is ingrained in me. And I've also have been waiting tables for like 20 years. And that essentially is like stand-up, that you're interacting with this small group of people for 2 to 5 minutes at a time. And you want to get them engaged. You want to make sure they're having a good time. And you got to kind of be able to think on your feet.
Yeah.
And so I have decades of practice. I just never got on stage until a year ago.
All right. Well, that's the better way of... It's definitely the glass half full way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, all right. Last couple questions. Favorite Jewish food?
Falafel. But really only in Israel.
Okay.
I have yet to find a falafel place here that is as good as the Little Blue Falafel stand outside the campus of the Alexander Muss program in Israel.
Excellent. And favorite Jewish holiday?
I think Rosh Hashanah.
How come?
I love new beginnings. I love fall. And that also is like the one holiday every year that as a family we never miss. That's the one where guaranteed me, my brother, his wife, my nephew, my husband, my son, we're all going to be at my parents' house and my mom has made something delicious.
Well, excellent. Well, Elise Cole, thank you for joining us, and have a great time opening the 10th Annual Twin Cities Jewish Humor Festival.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks again to Elise Cole for joining us this week, and to the St. Paul JCC for hosting the show. For more information on Elise's January 19th performance at the Twin Cities Jewish Humor Festival, check out the links in the show notes in the article. And for Elise's other shows around town, check out her website at elisecolecomedy.com. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the show. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, most other places you can find podcasts these days. Please also rate and review if you haven't. It helps others find the show. Thanks again for listening this week, and we will see you soon.